Lynae from Parking Lot Pippin.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Edgar. This is an amazing project. I've only been here for this 1 hour, and I've already seen so many different shades of people, so many different identities pass by me, all here in the name of reparations for Black people, and I think that's amazing. I also just think it's kind of cosmic timing that I am here to have this discussion with you. I recently just tweeted something after getting a lot of backlash from a recent post about the announcement for president by one, Ron DeSantis. And the feedback I was getting was so disillusioned. I began to realize that there are a lot of people who really do not understand the weight and impact of racialized discrimination for like centuries. And the tweet that I tweeted said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but slavery was not 400 years ago. And it sparked this huge debate, and one, everybody thought I was an idiot sandwich. They didn't know I knew about the 1619 Project, because what I did was subtract 2023 from 1865. It's only 158 years. And so once we had a discussion getting the math right, then the discourse opened to all this conversation. Well, if we're talking about 1865, slavery didn't even technically end there, citing the 13th Amendment, citing tenant farming and peonage debt and sharecropping and all these ways that our labor was stolen from us and we were cheated out of compensation for it. And so I think it's amazing when we are able to have gatherings like this, the fact that we're even able to have gatherings like this, because when we think about Black history, when we think about raising a voice for what we've been through, we often think about it in the context of policy and how we've been disenfranchised politically, but there's an economic disenfranchisement that hasn't even gone untouched, but it hasn't made a lot of headway in the pop culture space when we're talking about things. But movements for reparations have existed since before you were born, for sure, since before I was born, and we can talk about 40 Acres and a Mule if we want to, Special Order 15, how African Americans specifically in Georgia and South Carolina were led to believe they would get land for their service, for helping to burn down plantations, for helping William Sherman and Union soldiers lay waste to the racist South when that didn't happen. They had no power to give those things to us, and so we've been waiting for some type of reparation. And I think what we're asking for now is beyond a check, and they've let that check accumulate. We're gonna talk about that number. They've let it accumulate, and that's on them, but also an apology, like healing and truth. And what that means is that we're gonna have to do a lot of preparing, not just in the way of giving us funds, but having tangible mechanisms for healing for us, reversing a lot of the racism that has been entrenched and ingrained in systems that have gaslit us for centuries to believe that we shouldn't be complaining anymore. So all that is to say, we've been doing a lot. HR 40 has been presented at every congressional session since 1989. Cori Bush just last month pushed for the Reparations Now bill and talked about all the ways reparations could exist. So there's a movement, it's moving strong. How does the A3 conference play into this movement?
You know, we've come together for such a time as this. We have gathered 200 folks, leaders of this movement who have been doing this work, as you said, for a long, long time. Folks who are new to this movement since the murder of George Floyd. Lots of demands for reparations have just expanded. And this is one of the first times we've been able to get the movement together in one space because of the pandemic. And politically, this is a time, as you said, the legislation is moving. We're closer to the passage of HR 40 than we've ever been with a new resolution. We are building power. The conversation is shifting. Reparations is on the lips of everyone, and it feels within reach, right? And the time for reparations is now. So we wanted to come together to have the conversations that we need to have, to encourage one another, to feel inspired to go back to our different communities to continue to fight. We have people here fighting for reparations at the very local level in places like Asheville, North Carolina. We have folks fighting at the state level, like California, and then folks who are working together, all of us, towards a big passage of legislation at the federal level, which is currently HR 40.
Well, thank you. So I have a question, Mr. Edgar Villanueva. You're Native American. Why does this matter to you? Why are you here?
You know, when I think about what's so broken with our country, I go back to our original two sins. That was the near genocide of Native Americans and the taking of our land and the enslavement of more than 10 million African slaves. And so our struggles historically are deeply connected. For me personally, it's also a thing because I grew up in the South. My tribe is from the rural part of North Carolina. We have a history of being in deep solidarity with the Black community, coming together to fight white supremacy. And so I just think the way I was raised and what I experienced around me, but also politically, my political education has been one that is deeply grounded and rooted in solidarity. We have the value of this sort of what we call all my relations in my community, which means that we are inherently related, we are connected, our interdependence is inescapable. Your thriving is connected to my thriving, and your suffering is my suffering. And so I absolutely am clear that my people are not gonna get what they want and need to thrive in this country until Black people get what they want and need.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes by Audre Lorde is, "None of us are free until all of us are free." And in there she discusses just how there's no hierarchy of oppression, and not even to say that someone doesn't experience more pain than the other person, but we will not be able to get to where we want to be in our entirety unless we're fighting for one another to get what we need as well.
Right.
So I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
So what does a world look like for you from the outside looking in for Black people to get reparations?
In some ways, it looks like what I see around me right now. Joy, Black joy, solidarity. You know, I think what I imagine when Black people receive reparations is really an affirmation and acknowledgement that what has happened to Black people in this country was not fabricated, right? History is under attack.
Yeah.
A validation of what has been experienced is really what has contributed to all of the disparities that Black people face today. You know, we were talking earlier that like all my life I heard if you just work harder, or if Black people would do this or that, without the consideration of the hundreds of years of oppression that have contributed to all the things that both of our communities experience today. We know that it's not a matter of working hard, right?
Yeah.
We will all be doing just fine. So to me, an apology is and like some real an apology that comes with some action and some resources behind that apology is important to address the race wealth gap and the economic impacts and all of that. But for me, more importantly, it's a spiritual thing of saying like this is a token of expressing that this country has harmed you. We see that. We are really sorry about it, and we want to do something about it in a genuine way. Because the truth is there's no amount of money, right, that could be offered to Black folks to repair what has been done.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you 100%, but I'm not gonna say but, and I do feel that reparations, if we're able to see it, it's not going to be successful unless the communities it is for are well thought of in the process. We can't just hand people a check. It's just like we handed people freedom with no resources and not knowing what to do with it. We just can't hand them funds and expect them to be able to achieve the things that we've been asking for. So we need assistance. We need a specific type of guideline, not even necessarily guidelines, because reparations can't come with if, ands, or buts. Reparations can't come with stipulations or you must check these boxes, but it has to come with well thought out strategy in order for the communities to actually benefit from this thing. If we want to see a closing of the wealth gap, if we want to see Black people be enfranchised, they have to be financially literate and empowered to be able to use these funds. And I'm so glad that you said it, that no check can repay us for slavery, but also no amount of money can just undo years of trauma that we exist today. And I think that leans back to the top of the conversation, that slavery didn't just exist and stop at 1865. I'm not even talking about forms, I'm talking about here, I'm talking about here, and I'm talking about generationally as well. The 40s, 50s, and 60s didn't just happen and stop in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. The 70s didn't just happen in the 70s. We're talking about compounding interest that needs to be undone. And so on top of some money, can we get some health care, some mental health care?
Black people should not have to pay for mental health services in
We
this
should have to pay
country,
for anything. We should have to pay for anything. So I don't know, if you don't have any more points, I think.
I just appreciate the platform that you've created to educate all of us about Black history, things that we weren't taught in school. For folks who are not following Parking Lot Pimpin', I mean, every Friday, the tea is spilled, honey, and like the truth is being told. And so I appreciate that, and for you adding your voice to this movement. This movement is beautiful. It is growing. It is urgent. There's a lot of power in this space, and I believe we're gonna win reparations in our lifetime.
Thank you. I agree as well. I can really see it. It feels like we're in a time, unprecedented times, for real. And to see this type of event happening in the midst of all the trauma and pain and anger and mean and hatefulness we see on the news every week, it's refreshing. It's inspiring, and it helps to keep us going. Doing the work that I do is exhausting. Getting up and talking every Friday about something else that hurts us is exhausting. However, we can't move through any space without language, without vocabulary, without receipts to be able to help us feel validated in spaces that don't want to see us be validated. And I also do the work that I do because I feel like our education system is set up to make us believe that we don't deserve reparations, that things weren't as bad as we think they are. I spent so many years as a Black history teacher because I wanted to be, but I was required to teach U.S. history and teach unit after unit where the Black kids I taught were not in these pages at all. The only time they were shown themselves were in a position of enslavement or with the nonviolent movement of Dr. King. So there's a lot of things that need to be undone, and reparations isn't just a money thing to me in my book. It has to be interdisciplinary. It has
Absolutely. Yeah, we started this whole meeting talking about centering healing, centering Black joy, and we had a beautiful gospel choir that came in, and so this work is hard. This work is hard, but it is. We want to see a policy win, but we also want to deeply engage in transformative and spiritual healing along the way, so that we don't become the oppressor in the future, right? And so that's a really important point.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. It's not going to be easy. Some people are going to be upset. Some people are going to be uncomfortable. But that's not our problem.
Right.
There it is.
There it is. All right, y'all. Thank y'all. Give it up for Lynae, y'all, for coming out tonight. Thank you for being
guys.
here. Appreciate you.